Hi guys, meet everybody. It's MicheleMarieDalene, and today we're going to be focusing on July 4th, which is Independence Day. And I thought it would be good to remember what was past and why we celebrate Independence Day. In July 4th, 1776, a declaration was written called the United States Declaration of Independence. And I want to read it with you, and so that we can all understand what's going on. And because my eyesight, and because it's not that so great, and make this text big, and it's very important to remember that we live in a very, there we go. So we're going to focus on this. I'm going to read this to you today. And as I read it to you, I want you to keep it. I'll also leave it on the screen so you can read it too. So it won't just be me reading it to you, but also be for you as well, so that you can be part of this as well. Now, the copy comes from the BRI network, which I don't know anything about that, but I definitely British Rights Institute. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you, and I want you to listen to this, and let's compare it with what's going on right now here in the United States of America. Let's begin. I'm not going to cut out pieces and read the subsections. I'm going to read you the whole document. It's not that long. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. Remember, we originally started out as 13 states, okay? When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's gods entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes a destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are. I think I scrolled forward. Yeah. I know, slow. Okay. Here we go. I think this is right here. Causes and accordingly experience have shown that mankind is more disposed to exposed to. Okay, I hate the way they rate this thing. Jesus Christ. Well, let's just try to scroll up this way. Slowly, okay? Causes, according to evidence, shows shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable than right themselves by abolishing the forms of which they are accustomed. But when long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces designed to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right. It is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards to the future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of those colonies, and now such is now the necessary which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of this present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to the candid world. He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till the assessment should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless these people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them, intestable to them, and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of the public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses, repeatedly proposing with manly firmness the invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for the long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for the purpose of obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed to the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judicial powers. Okay, and make sure you don't scroll too far. Okay, fast. He has made judicial judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and to eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of all and superior to civil power. He has combined within others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large body armor's troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, which is not surprising, actually. I'll get to that in a second. For imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in neighboring provinces, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render at once an example unfit instrument for introducing the same absolute rules into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending our own legislatures, and for declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all causes whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of the protection out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting a large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of desolation, and tyranny already begun with the circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against the country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna give some updates on this. I don't think they really were meant to be merciless, but that's another subject in a second. Whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress to the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define as a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these assertions, which would invariably interrupt our connections and our correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and the consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce the necessity of which denounces our separation, and hold them as they hold the rest of the mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. Congress assembled appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of their intentions, do in the name and the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connections between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved as free and independent states. They have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may, all right, do. And the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. The 56 signatures in the positions indicated below. Georgia was signed by Button Gwinnett, North Carolina by William Hooper. And the other people was also mentioned. We have to mention there was like three of them. So Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, George Walton. North Carolina was William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, and John Penn. South Carolina has Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., Arthur Middleton. Massachusetts, John Hancock. Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Packer, Thomas Stone, Charles Carrollton. Virginia has George Wythe, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., and Francis Lightfoot Lee and Carter Braxton. Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, and George Ross. Delaware is Caesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKean. New York is William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morris. New Jersey is Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, and Abram Clark. New Hampshire was Joseph Bartlett, William Whipple. Massachusetts, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert Treat Payne, and Elbridge Gerry. Rhode Island, Stephen Hopkins, and William Ellery. Connecticut, which is my state, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, Oliver Wolcott. New Hampshire was Matthew Thornton. Now, a funny thing to remember is when that was written, we see a lot of the same things going on to this day. And that's going on in the insurrections within the United States. It's not over. It's not done. Our government has failed us. We need a new government for the people, by the people. Okay, like it said in the preamble. No, I don't necessarily want to see a revolution, just like the Beatles talk about, but we do have the right to elect new elected officials when we go to the polls on the 22nd. I mean, on November of this year. I believe it's November 2nd, Election Tuesday, for the midterms. Get out there and vote. Remember, this country was founded on the principle that we were getting away from a tyrannical government that basically was not treating its citizens with respect. Yet our government has become corrupted itself and is doing the same thing all over again. I just think it's kind of interesting how to see this cross reference in all these actions. But the truth is, history does repeat itself. History does repeat everything. And so we need to keep in mind that while some of the terminology used in this may seem kind of awkward and strange, especially what they said about the Native American people, please understand that was a different time. And they were, it was not a time of be pussyfooting around what they saw was the problem. That the British Empire was putting these Native Americans up to the savagery. It's very likely it was true. Who knows? But the thing is when you celebrate July 4th, please keep in mind it's not just fireworks and hot dogs and hamburgers. There's a reason behind the holiday. And that people need to keep that in mind. And this is the reason we have this holiday. It's this document. And I'm asking all of you to keep in mind as you go through your days and observe all that has happened in the last few years, that we are here as a country. We stand together, just as our ancestors did, against a tyrannical government that, again, is not keeping the needs of the people in check. Some of the stuff that the British Empire was accused of doing is happening now in our own country. Isn't that the most sucky thing you ever heard of? Well, we need to get into the polls and midterms, and we need to vote for these, get the right people in there. That's your job as Americans, to vote, and also vote the bums out. It's essential. And if this is not going to do any good, then it says, like, some people will just choose to remain kind of comfort zones in the prior administration. They will not change nothing. For those who don't change nothing, will continually suffer. That's my paraphrasing of what he said in the preamble. You guys think about this. If you guys don't do anything, you're allowing it to continue. Happy July 4th, guys. I'll see you on Monday morning. And I also wanted to say thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.